Our guest speaker is online, and it's Lou Daniel, and his subject, as you saw in the communication, is digital safe harbour, why we need it and how to build it. So it's a topic of relevance and interest. Lou trained as a geochemist in Perth back in the 80s and continues to earn a living in the minerals industry as a barefoot data architect. I don't know what a barefoot data architect is. Lou can tell us. Lou's deeply concerned that individual dignity and community safety are under attack by an accelerating techno dystopia, and the phones and laptops we have come to depend upon shouldn't dictate terms to us, but they are. We need to regain privacy and independence and relief from the constant barrage of online life. We need digital safe harbour. Lou's going to share with us what all that means and what a digital safe harbour is and how we can achieve it. Lou, thank you very much for joining us.
And thanks so much. I take it I'm live here.
We can hear you.
Great. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for having me on tonight. I aim to speak for 30 or 40 minutes, and will hopefully leave plenty of time for a bit of discussion at the end. I'll just explain in a minute what a barefoot data architect is. My name's Lou Daniel. You can see my family, of which I'm inordinately proud. We live in Perth by the beach. I've been doing this minerals industry work for a long time. I've put on my slide, I did spend 10 very great years in Melbourne as a bit of a break from the fire and the fury of mining life. I am currently working in mining as I'll call myself a barefoot data architect. I'm a guy who helps people make that transition from the chaos of ill-formed spreadsheets and Word documents to hopefully a reasonably well-structured database environment. And that transition's done in steps. So I've come to make something of a personal discipline in always being able to go from pen, paper, notebook to relational database design and straight back again. And hopefully those statements will make a little bit more sense as we go. Sorry, I'm hitting my cursor buttons in my presentation. Oh, here we go. So I did spend 10 years in Melbourne. It was an important time of my life. It was an immersion in the community sector. I stopped doing mining. I came to Melbourne to see how the rest of the world lived. And the proudest thing I leave behind is a little outfit at the Ceres Environmental Park in East Brunswick. You can see in this slide on the left image, there's a shed in the background, which was a nice thing that we built from the concrete up. And to the right, a absolutely, I'll call it hippie-inspired construction of 94 unwanted steel bike wheels, which were welded together. We thought it would stay up for two seasons. It's now 27 years old, and I believe it's still there. Moving right along. The subject of this talk is digital safe harbour, and it's about digital overwhelm. This may be my demographic, but I suffer it. Password exhaustion, noise. If anybody's tried to research me, you may not have turned much up because I don't do social media. I turned off LinkedIn a year ago, never got a job out of it. I've become a fairly quiet presence. And we know that online life, as well as being noisy and taxing and exhausting to some of us, is dangerous. My goodness me, there's some people out there who are just ruthless and they're relentless. So in the course of reworking my own digital environment, I'll hopefully get the next one. I decided, I came to the personal conclusion that there was just nothing out there that served my needs for a safe, personal, go-to working environment. Almost by definition, being alone is not that safe. Being alone is isolation. Being alone is not having anybody to call. Being alone is not having anybody to advise you. Am I being surveilled? Most probably. So this notion of digital safe harbour is a notion of a community effort to create a community resource which supplies us with our workaday basics. I separate this from the whole rest of the world that you reach by browser, the YouTube, everything else. That's the opt-in noise. This is about creating a safe, personal, professional environment, the sort of place where you might safely leave your images of your house title and your accounts and your documents, the working part of our life. It's important that it's secure. If it's something that's done by the community, it goes with that turf that we have transparent governance. And for my own values, it's got to be economical. And if you're on the bones of your proverbial, you should still be able to get to it. So those are my criteria. So there was a there was a particular motivation. I got very interested in community food, shelter, and networking generally in that sojourn in Melbourne. I haven't had much time to work on it since I've been back in Perth. But it's again a sense of there's a sort of a digital lockout. If you can't afford the subscriptions, if you can't afford a laptop, oh, you are homeless indeed. So if we're going to build something that works for those people, it's got to be resilient and it's got to be independent. And the reason I've highlighted that word is that there are many groups out there doing things. There are some very fine charities in Australia, and I rate the big churches as part of that. But at the end of the day, real independence is a voluntary, grassroots, opt-in exercise. And I continue to put my faith in that, saying that very small numbers of people can do very great things. So here is, the bread and butter of paid working life. We all know what this is about. Now, bear with me. I've just got to drag a window because part of my slides are being obscured. Thank you for bearing with that. All right, here's Microsoft. We all grew up with this. I mean, I'll say most of us are probably around old enough to remember the whole evolution of what we've got now. I remember VisiCalc. I thought it was fantastic. But we now have Microsoft, and I think it's fantastic. I use it at work. It works. But we're provided this very corporate package. It certainly works, but we know what's wrong with Microsoft for community work. It costs a bomb, especially if you do it properly. It requires MS accounts, and that is an increasingly intrusive proposition. Windows 11 advertises at you until you learn how to turn that off. It's all a bit much. plus Copilot everywhere you look. And well, I think that's a pretty well-known experience now of corporate computing. I mean, when you're at when you're at work, they own your proverbial. It's fine. What about in our private lives, in our community lives, in our politically independent lives? We have good old Google apps, used by many, loved by very few. Gmail works great. I use it all the time. It's got spam filters. I don't do anything sensitive on Gmail. The rest of the suite I find very underwhelming. I breathe a weary sigh and say things I shouldn't say where only I can hear them when I'm dragged into using these Google tools as a if I dare say it, a professional who's been working with good tools for many years. I find it almost impossible to get into serious community involved work when we're dealing with the Google suite and the Dropbox. So forgive me, anybody who loves that suite, but there is an alternative to this as well. And there needs to be an alternative. So here's a little info slide. The answers I'm going to present in another slide or two's time revolve around open source. Without getting deeply into it, because I did promise to keep this in layman language, which I don't have, I can't go too far into this. I'm not a certified Linux engineer, but the important thing about open source, it's software that is published complete, as in, if you have the wish to, you can download it, read it, see how it was written. You can change it. When you use open source, you have maybe the only guarantee you can have that you are not completely hostage to the product, as is obviously the case with Microsoft. Now, Linux, the famous operating system for computers, is open source. So is Android, as it happens, the operating system that runs on your Samsung phone. I noticed that people call it Samsung operating system now, but it's Android. Windows and iOS are not, iOS being Mac. So we don't want to be hostage. So let's see what happens if we go to open source. So this is the outcome of about a year of personal investigation, trial and error. I found a good suite. It's called OnlyOffice. OnlyOffice is open source. It's really strong. It feels like MS Office. It's even got real tables in the spreadsheets. It's intuitive. It works. You know, your right click takes you to the expected place. There's been some objections, like very recent, that its origins are too Russian for some. But it's a big enough thing that there's an EU commissioned version of OnlyOffice coming. In the parlance, that means they're forking it. They're taking advantage of the fact that OnlyOffice is open source, and a skilled person can pick up that code and do their own version. There are various promises and limitations in the licensing of open source, but the important thing is you can pick up the code and make your own version of it. In the bottom left, I've put an honorable mention for another package called Collabora Online. These are apps that work mainly through browsers. Collabora Online is, its parent is good old LibreOffice. So anyone who's used Linux knows about LibreOffice. I've never been overjoyed with LibreOffice. It just feels clunky. I'm spoiled. MS Office works much better. In my opinion, I'm quite happy to be challenged on that afterward. The other part of an everyday working environment, you need those apps. You've got to be able to write. You've got to be able to do a spreadsheet and a presentation. This presentation's been done on only Office. But then we have whatever it is that you use that corresponds to OneDrive or iCloud or Google Drive. It is the standard and good way to do personal computing, is to make sure that everything you do is backed up somewhere. USBs are a little bit last century. And in reaching out with this presentation, this will hopefully become evident why it's so necessary to network if we're to create a resilient, safe community sector IT infrastructure. Now, Nextcloud works quite well. I've tried it out on servers that I rent time on. I've had no problem with it. There are commercial providers that provide Nextcloud too, but it's not the same as building your own operating charter. It's not the same as starting out on your own hardware and having that voyage of discovery yourself. Nextcloud's great. I'm sure there may be other candidates in this space, but this one has stood out for me. Excuse me. Okay, the other thing about Nextcloud is it includes that thing that we now call Teams. Part of that Microsoft environment is Teams. We used to have Skype, we used to have email, and those things have kind of, they're fading into the background now in favor of a merged thing, which looks like a social media chat room. I mean, I find I have to adapt to this at work, but this ability to combine chat and video conferencing and slides, much in the way we're doing right now, has become the bread and butter of a professional work environment. And Nextcloud does support those functions, chat, video conferencing. So again, to hopefully not labor the point too hard, the business of community, that is people who are giving of their time, their passion, their heart, to that business of doing things on our own time or on our own dollar with like-minded people. This is the business of community, and we deserve better than Google Drive. We deserve a high-performance community office environment, which is as comfortable to go to work on as your Microsoft corporate thing. Now, putting in place the basics of document, spreadsheet, presentation, to me is a starting point. It certainly can extend to media, authoring, accounting, more ambitious type functions. But that brings me to the question of, okay, I've put up this image. Let me explain it a little bit. In my image, which is a sort of a gestalt or a snapshot of Safe Harbor, I've got that one. I've got that Nextcloud logo, which I introduced. I've got the Only Office logo, which I introduced. I've got silhouette people sitting on what looks like lily pads. So in my visual language here, those lily pads are the places that we live. And I think that place is part of the architecture of a community network. The blue is the network. It's just the digital connectivity. It just happens to be the same color as an ocean. I've used the color orange for hardware, just highlighting that it's that hardware that we hold in our hands, that we put on our desks, that we sit on our floors. We can't live without that anymore. We are an urban species, and this is how we live. And the little grayed out sailing boats, 2 at anchor, 1 sailing, a reference to us on the train with an iPhone on our own, something I do. if I can just move along. The question is, how do we set up such a lovely idea? But first, a word about phones. Phones are now that absolute fallback. You really cannot function without one. Now, I'll bring up the subject of homelessness a few times only because it's a subject very close to my heart. I've been through hard times in what's now a medium-long life. I've been close to that edge, and I've certainly made friends with people who are close to that edge. It's a matter of profound importance to me that nobody is left out of this. And that comes down to having a phone. So just a quick word about phones. Android's cheap, Pixels are cheap, sorry, Google Pixels. If you don't like Android, there are various secure versions of it. Graphene is Android with all of the Google stuff turned off. It's terrific, it's quiet. Lineage is another one of these Android type systems. If you want a very, very secure phone, that is a direction you can go in. Turning off all the telemetry, put that in the intermediate to advanced category. But my lived experience is that nothing beats an iPhone, and I'm hanging on to mine. I have an iPhone 10. My youngest son has the 17 that I pay for. He needs it to shoot videos of his recreational activities, but the 10 works great. I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. We've done nearly half an hour. Now, also another word about personal equipment, laptops and PCs. The development of this digital harbour architecture, I'm going to get to in a slide or two, is that it comes to you via browser, which is kind of the modern way to do things. And in terms of engaging with it, anything will do. Your Windows PC is fine. I've got a 2018 vintage laptop running Win 10. There's nothing wrong with it. I keep using it. Your Mac will be fine because these all support browsers. Browsers means, Chrome or Firefox. Any competent modern browser will bring you the functions of Nextcloud and OnlyOffice as being the nub of an open source productivity environment. So you use this stuff over the internet, but the two apps that I've selected to talk about do work offline. They're both quite competent. They have desktop versions. And now to some nitty gritty. If I'm sure we've got a few people. Oh, sorry, I've gone too far. Okay, a little bit of a nitty gritty now. How do you run this stuff? Okay, I'll just introduce these apps run on servers. Now, servers are not magical or special. Servers are simply computers that just do a particular job. They serve an app. So a server can be your 2018 laptop, if that's what you want to use. It'll only go so far, but the thing is that you can absolutely do DIY the beginnings of a server network. I have an almost unused i7 with all sorts of gigabytes that's probably more powerful than the average data center of 20 years ago. But the point being, a server is just a computer. It runs without a keyboard or a mouse because you control it from another computer. And in my picture here, I'm just trying to show that the server beams its app to the device that you use, in this case, a pair of laptops. A server serves many other devices. And this is as technical as I'll get tonight. Servers are a joy to run if you enjoy a little bit of DIY network admin. Servers there's a special breed of software of operating system called a hypervisor. Again, I'll be very careful how deep I get into this. A hypervisor in this context is basically a version of Linux that's just built to keep servers running, and ordinary operating systems run on top of it. So if you've heard the expression of virtual machine, that is an ordinary operating system. I've drawn a little picture of the Debian Linux logo. That sits on top of a hypervisor, and then whatever app you run sits on top of the ordinary Linux. It's like a 3-layer sandwich. This running of hypervisors is an absolute skill that has to be learned and created and developed in any attempt at a community operated server network. This is how all of the commercial VM services are delivered. To me, it's a fun project. I managed to get all this stuff up and running. Well, I'll admit it now, I use chat. But it is fun. There was a time when this sort of software, these operating systems, were incredibly arcane, and you had to do command line syntax. You had to. It was like, you know, NASA or something. These days, it's all browser based. You get graphical user interfaces. You learn the menus. It's actually fun to run these hypervisors. It's fun to run Linux on top of it, and it's fun to run an Nextcloud web app if you're so inclined. A word about AI, because I don't think you can talk about IT without talking about AI. I mean, this has exploded, obviously, in recent years. I don't talk about AI because it's not intelligent. I do talk about large language models, LLMs, and they are incredibly useful. I would much rather have my LLM read all the documentation on Proxmox hypervisors and give me answers than have to read through it myself. The thing with LLMs is that they are now into 4th and 5th generations. You can actually run LLMs on your own hardware. So I see that's quite compatible with a proposed community infrastructure to run LLMs safely on your own hardware. It's open source, and it's a very different proposition to paying for the invisible machinations of Anthropic. LLMs are great for technical learning. They're very, very strong for anything to do with coding and documentation. Surprise, surprise. That's where it all came from. So I'm coming near the end of this deck. This proposition is it's as much about community as it is about technology. That sense of isolation, that sense of alienation, that sense of, oh my God, I use all this stuff and I have no idea where it's coming from. I don't think this can go on forever. I'm waiting for the young people to backlash and say, you know, we need control of this stuff back. I see signs of it, but we do need to take control of our digital essentials, those things that we can't live without. I believe that that is a matter of grounding in place as well as people. One of the nice things about doing a server network is those machines have got to sit somewhere. Sure, when you're a great big NGO, you can hire space and data centers, but to get going, it makes sense to me to build as you need to fall back. So I'm being a little bit apocalyptic here, but should the country run out of money, as seems not quite unlikely, there may come a time when it turns out to be rather necessary to have secure community IT running on patches of ground that we either own or safely control ourselves. I think that there's a function in equipment on real ground in real rooms and buildings. There's a thing we need to do, which is learning and teaching together. Forgive me if I'm galloping along, but after 30 years of watching people using Word and Excel, I still see a dire need to teach people how to use them properly. And again, my own personal heart pang is making sure that people who are close to the edge can't be locked out. And that could be as unsophisticated as being able to access the wireless outside where you know there's a community server. So again, forgive me, it's a subject close to my heart. So, from Go to Pro, how would you do this? Well, you would start with an absolute DIY approach. We all own equipment that's plenty good enough to build a network out of. That spare games machine in your kid's room, it'll run an LLM. One of the reasons that I've started here, and this is the first time I've given this talk, and I thank you for the opportunity. I didn't go straight to the Perth Linux users group because I think that geo-redundancy is kind of almost the starting point. I would like to see national geo-redundancy. And sorry I promised to explain that. Geo-redundancy just means copies of stuff in widely different locations, so that what happens in Perth doesn't compromise what happens in Melbourne. Your backups are safe in at least 2 different places. This is technical stuff. Professional input needed. One can only get so far as an enthusiast. My experience in working with real pros, I mean, guys that do it for a living, is that they can save you so much time and get you learning so much faster. They know what not to do. To create a proposed community infrastructure, we need a chartered approach to this. We assume that all those agree buttons that we hit with promises of security and privacy mean something. Who knows? I don't know what they mean. I can't use the stuff unless I hit accept. We're all just hitting accept all the time. One of the benefits that I could see from a community approach to this is you can elect to have people being your data admins and nobody else between you. Now, none of us are perfect, but I do believe that a group of well-intentioned people can get together and create quite strong ethical practices together. All that data sitting on servers is encrypted. You can't just go in and read it. IT admins don't actually do that. But it's a fairly solemn duty to look after somebody's information. And I think that possibly in this, future that's galloping towards us that hasn't been written before, there may be a new kind of job, the chartered data custodian. In the days of jalopies and horse-drawn carts, nobody ever knew about EVs. Similarly, I think some of these important things we're working out as we go now. My second last point, open source is free to start with, and that's fantastic because it gets you going. But when you get serious, when people's livelihoods are depending on things, there are paid tiers, and most of these companies have compared to Microsoft, very affordable paid tiers, which they usually call enterprise. And if you get serious, you should use that. And I think that an effort like this lends itself, to me, it would fall naturally into operation as a social enterprise. That is something with a legal basis, something a little bit tighter than a membership club, possibly a company limited by guarantee, as we've all learnt to call charities now, but essentially a charity. That brings me to the end of my slideshow. I really need to thank Kirsten very profusely for her well-natured advice and support. This has been a year now. And also Greg Keogh, a friend of Kirsten's, who gave me a very generous slab of time right at the beginning of this year-long voyage when I thought I was trying to write a database, but I ended up here. And with this, I hand it back to our president, please, and thank you for getting this far with me.
The phenomenon of running your own servers and going down the DIY path has picked up a name recently called home labbing. So if you're interested, yeah, have a search for home lab. And the club has also been doing many of these tasks here at the club. We even run Nextcloud down in the server room.
My apologies for not knowing that in advance.
Well, not many people know what it is, they just use it.
Well, that's a great comfort. Alan, am I speaking to? Sorry, I wasn't sure who directed the question.
That was Sean.
Oh, Sean. Well, thanks for the question, Sean. Well, that's a great comfort. I mean, I can't add anything to it. You're ahead of me. What I lack in actual established, IT admin skills, I think my passion is the community creation. Again, Perth is not Melbourne. It's much more sparse environment. I mean, Melbourne's a much more lived-in town. Culturally, Perth's a little bit lean compared to. I don't know if we've got anything like the MelbPC users. I understood from Kirsten that the origins of MelbPC was Australia. Was it Australia's first internet provider?
MelbPC in the past has run the Southern Hemisphere's largest bulletin board system.
Yep.
Until the advent of the internet, we were one of the first clubs to offer internet to our members, and we were one of the first 4 ISPs in Melbourne.
It's not going out though.
So we've been involved in providing stuff to community for a long time.
I went looking for community implementations of Nextcloud. I couldn't find them.
Unless you remember, you probably wouldn't even know about our file repositories.
Well, I think membership might be staring me in the face as a requirement pretty soon.
If you're interested in this sort of stuff, the Saturday microcontroller group that meets online and here at the club often discuss Proxmox, home labbing type activities, amongst other things.
Terrific.
While we're waiting for others, can you get an equivalent of Microsoft Access on the open source programs?
Oh, I love this question. The reason I love this question is because I love Microsoft Access. I don't know if there's ever been anything quite as useful. There is an open, LibreOffice has a database called Base. It's the same intention as Access. One file contains data and forms and queries. It's not as powerful as a good old MS Access. It's a welcome question. Having worked in more serial corporate environments, MS Access is hunted down like some sort of four-legged undesirable creature in corporate environments now. And I've seen really good homegrown databases on various sites shut down by IT departments, saying you can't have that anymore. And then the people who had it say, well, what do we do now? IT says use spreadsheets. So it's a great question. If you're going to do database yourself, I mean, you've got to have a license to get at MS Access. You don't have to have a license to look at MS Access. The only product I actually know that's anything like it is Base. There are a few, low code, no code things you can get at, which are served up, but I've not found anything that is as agile and complete as a fast database builder as MS Access. So sorry, no good news on that.
Thank you. I still can't see. I haven't got a picture of who's online. So if someone online wants to ask a question.
Yeah, Paul Shipley. I had a question for Lou. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Lou, for that presentation. That was really excellent. I quite enjoyed that. I just wonder your thoughts of if you've been following what the tech bros envisage for us, given that now computers are so expensive that nobody can afford them. And most recent articulation of this was Jensen Huang at his NVIDIA presentation just the other day, where the model for everybody for going forward was going to be a very cheap device, tablet, laptop, that would then interact with his beautiful data center, where all his beautiful servers would then serve all your stuff to you, and which you would subscribe to forevermore. Just wonder what your thoughts are on that, given what we've just been discussing.
Well, it sounds not so much different from Steve Jobs and the Apple ecosystem. Presumably he's going to sell you the handpiece as well. My thoughts are, I mean, I've been following it, as an armchair observer, really. I don't know what it is that all this AI does that is so important and special. What does it do? I've had my burst of usage. I used it intensely, to the point of exhaustion. I use it much less now. I've gone back to normal searching for the most part, because I've grown completely distrustful of the veracity of anything that comes out of these LLMs. And what I think that Jensen, is he talking to a generation of people who find it necessary to create, impossible avatars of themselves, to create, I'm sorry, I'm stuck for words here. I see AI used in workplaces. It's slop. All I see is slop. I see embarrassing slideshows now, where it would have been good enough for a data engineer only a year ago to present something schematic, tight, to the point. Now we've got full color AI slop cartoons full of rabbits and signs and rainbows adorning every slide. Whatever it is that Jensen's selling, I don't need it, and I don't think that day-to-day life needs it. Wish I could do better. So,
Kirsten is online, and she's put a request in the chat. Could you say a little bit more about the Nextcloud web apps?
Okay. I've not had a lot of I haven't crash tested the comms, the messaging. Had nobody to do it with. Not as satisfyingly far away as Melbourne anyway. If we're talking about the only Office apps, that is the spreadsheet, the document writer, the PowerPoints, these are docx. They're the Microsoft format native, so it's docx, XLSX, PPTX native. There's an enormous document server that you can buy that sits behind that. I don't know if you need it. Like browser stuff, it works better on the desktop version, and there is a desktop version of Only Office that works reasonably well. I can't say it's quite as snappy as Microsoft, and the web browser versions have got that lag. Overall, I've been pleasantly surprised at what is in these apps. I was really pleasantly surprised that the Only Office spreadsheets got real tables. So for people who use spreadsheets a lot, that's the difference between something that behaves like a simple little database. It's the difference between that and formula dragging, which I'm sorry for people who don't know what I'm talking about, but industry is full of enormous spreadsheets full of formulas that have been dragged 1,000 rows down. If you don't want to do that, you need tables. Very long answer to the question. I think that Only Office is viable as a professional productivity tool.
The other thing, of course, is remember, if you're using Linux, the machine's likely to be running quite a bit more efficiently and faster, and it's going to be more secure.
I've had my go at using a Linux desktop for my daily driver, so I'm learning all these tech bro terms. I went back to Win 10 just because I like it. It's comfortable. Somebody's going to tell me that I'm in mortal danger pretty soon, and I guess that's when I'll nuke it and put Ubuntu back on.
Because of course, Only Office and LibreOffice run on Win 10 as well, anyway. So
right.
you can
I look
convert to
forward...
Linux by step.
I mean, Linux itself is fascinating. I mean, I know that there's nuance all over the place. I mean, in my limited researches, I went purist because I'm a scientist, so I was drawn to the Debian Linux. Then I found that was a bit hard. It was hard work. It doesn't make it easy to connect to printers and things. I've ended up on Ubuntu because it's softer and a bit easier. Apparently it's owned by a bad person, so I don't know how much longer I can go on that.
If you're running Linux, it looks almost the same as Microsoft 10 anyway. So
yeah.
Everything runs very, very much the same. But yeah.
I can get around in Ubuntu. I don't mind. I mean, I won't cry if I have to turn off Win 10. I'm not patching it or anything.
Lynn Barry here. If Open Office is so good, how come it hasn't made more of a penetration into the market? I mean, it's still very small percentage compared with Microsoft stuff, isn't it?
It certainly is. And for years and years, the only approach to Microsoft was LibreOffice. I mean, that's got a long lineage. I think that started off as Star Office or something. Yes. Like one of the original word processors evolved into LibreOffice, which is the free suite that you get with any Linux desktop. LibreOffice is actually really nicely built. In a lot of ways, it's elegant. The pieces fit together in great ways, but it doesn't have that smooth, friendly, right-click, gets you everything feel that Office does.
No, it is still undergoing continuous development and improving all the time. So you might find what you didn't like before is now quite good.
Oh, I will say the web version of it, Collabora, which is LibreOffice in web web app served form is actually really good. I prefer it in many ways to Only Office. It's faster and lighter, feels great. It just doesn't quite have the stuff I want to write structured documents, to be a barefoot data architect and show people how to turn their horrible spreadsheets into flat, clean ones on the way to database.
You might find if you download the current version of LibreOffice, it's a lot closer to what you want now than it used to be.
I will try it.
And of course, OpenOffice and that, with Denmark, Germany and France all going Linux, they're all going to be very much developed.
Well, this is a big EU thing. Again, without being an authority, I believe that Nextcloud's got a pretty big penetration into EU governmental circles. I think they active. The EU has been feuding with Microsoft for a decade or more now, and as I understand it, I mentioned it before, Only Office being a rather more powerful productivity suite than good old LibreOffice that I was aware of. They are forking it. It's called Euro Office and it's coming soon. They've got a website. I don't think you can get it yet. It's in beta with all the people that have paid to build it.
Jane has her hand up.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Jane.
Thank you. Hi, Lou. Thanks for your presentation. I'm in a few community organizations that try to keep things running, to keep their online services that are needed. We do networking. One is U3A, has a huge networking system so that we can do all our operations. We share software. It's still a headache. But the one thing that I didn't hear discussed, I'd be interested if you've given it any thought, is connectivity and the cost of data movement, because a lot of people can't afford the monthly data service. How does that get provisioned to people who are at the end of the process for their communications? We sit here, we're doing some wonderful things because we can afford it, but there are a lot of people out at the other end who can't. So how do we get them involved and the learning and all the support that's necessary for them to learn it?
That's a great question. Thank you, Jan. For me, I experimented with what I thought was just the minimum viable connectivity, which is an Aldi SIM. Aldi SIM costs $20 a month. To me, $20 a month, I mean, if you don't have $20 a month, you are in really deep trouble. I don't know if you're a viable person if you can't find $20 a month to keep an Aldi SIM going. My experience is that, and I don't say that in a judgmental way at all. I say that in a compassionate way. My experience is that an Aldi SIM gives you enough data and tolerable latency that you can do your browser-based work. I mean, if you need to thumb type a document, it will work on a Google Pixel, which is my proof of concept machine, $370 a year ago. The poor thing's had graphene on it. It's had lineage on it. My point being that the handset, the connectivity, a little bit of charity, $20 a month, I think it is in reach to stay connected. The rest of it, I mean, my goodness me, I got my blooding in community organisations in that 10 years. I was secretary of series for 3 years or 5 years, I can't remember anymore. It was at least 3 years. And I was actually on the teaching staff there. Back in the day, I was a fairly hardcore green inquirer. Age will take care of that. What's left is a profound worry for the state of the people who can't keep up. regardless of whether they've got an EV or who they vote for. That hard work of community organisations, oh my God, thank God there are some people who will do it and may always be so. I just can't say that strongly enough. I don't think it's easy. As far as a personal commitment goes, I will always be happy to find, you know, that 2 or 3 evenings a week to keep on top of some sort of a contribution. I don't know if I'm addressing your question, but to sum up, I think that connectivity can be maintained, even on a $20 SIM card. NBN fibre seems to work pretty well. It's not failed me. And the business of administration is, I think you've either got to love it or you've got to know it's necessary and just do it. One other thing I'll just add to that. Working in the series ecosystem was an experience of non-hierarchical structures. And I think this might be relevant. You know, we're used to working in straight hierarchies in business. I mean, I certainly have worked in hierarchies in industry. Non-hierarchical systems are possible, but they've got their own deep discipline. My experience of non-hierarchical management, which is basically where we all want to go. I certainly don't want to work for nothing after work and have a boss. I certainly want to be respected as absolutely not an alpha male. I'm not an alpha male. I'm a negotiating male. I love the company of other negotiating people. Getting to the point, I think the hard work of community organisation is a discipline. You can be non-hierarchical, but if you are, my God, you've got to have a discipline of minutes and meetings. But thank you for asking.
Lou, you've made 1 hour pass very fast.
Oh, that was my only hope. I mean, you know, I can't think of a worse thing to do than to record you.
Yes. So the time has come to say thank you very much for that. It was, I think it's thought-provoking for everybody who still uses, like me, who still uses Microsoft and others, to have a closer look at the open office stuff. So thank you very much. We tend to have a bottle of bubbly for our speakers, and there'll be one here for you next time you're passing by.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah. I have friends and loved ones in Melbourne, so I'll take you up on that.
Okay. So thank you very much, and ask everyone if they'd show their appreciation. I'll now introduce our President, David Stonier-Gibson.
Okay, it's been a fairly interesting month, I think I can say, in many ways. Starting off with, for those who are in the building at the moment, you can see that the wall between the 2 rooms on the north, south, east or west side, whatever it is, that side there, is halfway demolished. So we're in the process of turning the 2 rooms into a single room divided by a sliding door for an extended makerspace. And the plan is now that we're going to start equipping, well, we're on the way to equipping the makerspace in any event. We've already bought a resin 3D printer. The more common type of 3D printer that people use extrudes a little bead or line of plastic onto a heated bed. The resin printers use an epoxy resin which is hardened by ultraviolet light, and they have a LCD screen, and they sort of build up layers of images, shall we say, to create a 3D object. The thing about the resin printers is they have much, much finer resolution than the plastic printers. So the feature sizes that are printed with a resin printer are smaller than the human eye, the naked eye can discern. The thing that makes the resin printer hopefully attractive for the club and useful for the club is that there's a whole community out there of gamers who love making models of their gaming heroes. And hopefully with having a resin printer, we'll be able to attract quite a lot of those as new members into the makerspace function of the club, which is Moorabbin Makerspace. They're smelly and messy, so it's going to be housed downstairs in the sharing space, we say, with the server room. And a couple of guys have managed to find a way of venting it out to the great outdoors, so there won't be smell in the room. So that's actually a very exciting development. I went down to Braeside, picked that up about a fortnight ago. It hasn't been used yet, but we're getting it all lined up. A couple of things about websites. The Makerspace, moorabbinmakerspace.org.au website is kind of up and running. At the moment it's pretty much a rebadged Moorabbin, was it Melbourne Creators Collective website, but it's going to be sort of morphed into something a little more appropriate to how we think the Makerspace initiative will develop during the year. And the vision there is basically to be very honest about here we are, we're in the process of developing something, we're not trying to sell you something all glitzy and fancy and what have you that doesn't really exist. But it will give people who want to be able to contribute to how that develops a chance to actually have a part of that, of how it develops. And we're working on high-tech stuff like resin 3D printers and doing some work on the transition, the crossover between hard technologies like that and microcontrollers and the more craft-type activities. If you've been in here on Saturday, sometimes you'll notice some ladies in one half of the makerspace area there doing fabrics and quilting and stuff like that. And that adds a whole new, very interesting dimension to the club going forward. So that transition from tech to craft has me certainly very excited. The MelbPC work, website has been redesigned by a team of students, and it's now up in its new glory. And I invite everyone, please, to go and have a look and take a trip through it and explore it on phones and laptops and widescreens and what have you, and report any issues you see, I think, in the first instance to Rob Brown. Because there are a few cosmetic things that could need detecting and fixing up. Okay, we had our 3D belt printer, which is back here now. That's a thing that we scored from as a gift from someone that can print almost infinitely long 3D prints. In fact, I'm going to ask Mick about using that to print some seals for my shower at home. Mike Maxwell was very helpful with driving and setting up and stuff, so thank you, Mike. Sophie Allen was helping to run the stand, and this thing was for high school girls, I think, for career opportunities, and Kate Cohen from She Code for donating beads for a bead color game, and Alexa Pandashta for emergency sticker collection. And Dr. Kirsten Ellis, who I know from Monash, who has this system of connecting LEDs and little bits and pieces electronically together using conductive tape, which was an interesting thing. So apparently that was a very successful little expedition out there to Jeff Shed. On Tuesday, the May the 19th, we had our first daytime monthly meeting right here in the borrowed room, and it went down really, really well. The idea with that, to all those people, all those guys at home and ladies who don't want to be driving out at night to come to monthly meetings, that's the thing for you. And it's a little more social than this rather structured monthly meeting. There might be an ad hoc presentation rather than a formal presentation. And we sit around and we had a lovely time. Mike Maxwell provided lunch because he's a very capable chef. So we had a nice lunch with some soup and was it soup and that's right, and a sandwich. Was it pastrami? Homemade pastrami sandwich. Very New York. That was really successful. There's one coming up again later this month. So please watch out for your What's On thing on Thursdays, tomorrow, and come along. It's good. I think it was $10 for the lunch in the kitty. Introductory $10. What's it going to go up to $75 next year, is it? Yeah. So it actually really was nice, and get together, socialise, and have a good chat with friends. Yes. Apropos 3D printers and the like, I've been negotiating with a company in Braeside who actually supplied our upmarket 3D printer. They did a presentation a couple of years ago, or probably more than that now, time does fly when you're having fun, on full body, full length scans and colour 3D printout figurines called what's it called? Your mini reel. And they've got this booth sitting at Braeside which isn't working terribly well for them because of its location. And they asked for if they could possibly have permission to place the booth here in our premises. And so we've been talking about that a couple of times. It hasn't been sort of elevated yet quite to official committee discussion, but I think there's a very, very good chance we will wind up with that booth here in the borrowed room. It's a kind of a tent-like structure. It's got 42 cameras and LED lighting, and you step into it. They put me into it when I was down there a few weeks ago, and it takes pictures from all around, 42 pictures simultaneously, which means basically you can take your dog in there or your child in there, and it doesn't matter if they're moving around because it's just one single shot that grabs all views. Then it gets converted into a file. After that, if you're paying for them for their service, it gets sent off to China and 3D printed in full glorious colour. But we will also, well done. We will also have the ability to print out the models on our 3D printer in the basement, not in colour. Is this at all visible?
They gave a talk here a couple of years ago.
Yes, they did. Yes, yeah. That's a little one of me, not out of vanity. It's just I got stuck in front of inside this booth, and so I've been printing that out on my printer at home. I've got one in gold as well, but Donald Trump sent me a cease and desist notice, so I had to get rid of that. That again, the whole idea there is that we have this thing. If you're a member of this club, you can actually scan yourself and print out in the club a full-size model and make with the paintbrushes yourself if you want to. And I think it should be a very good thing for attracting people into the club. So we're trying to do these things that people will be attracted to within the club. Under largely the guise of the makerspace. Finally, I don't have a link for you, but you can find it easily enough on YouTube. A few weeks ago, we had a lady in here who runs a show called Over 50, So What? And she interviewed a few of us about what we're on about in the club, mainly aimed at the over 50s market segment, shall we say. So it's largely about the computer help and that sort of thing. And that video is now on YouTube. I'll try to put the link to that actually on tomorrow's What's On email. And I'm happy to report the interview with me wound up on the cutting room floor. So you won't have to put up with me twice in 1 week. But Kirsten was very good, and one of the gentlemen who runs the Be Connected, John, yeah. So that's it from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's Mick.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, I don't have a lot to talk about tonight. David sort of took a lot of my thunder, but I would like to reiterate a thank you to Kirsten and Mike and the rest of the gang that Kirsten corralled to help at the expo the last 2 days. They're very exhausting, these expos, so the more people that help on those days, the less work it is for each individual. And I feel bad because I didn't go this time, but I will next time. And a thank you to David for getting some T-shirts sorted for the day with the branding for Moorabbin Makerspace. That was well received, and a good look, good for marketing when we're wearing our colours out and about. So I'll be looking at getting regular T-shirts done for everybody that wants one. You know, pay by, you know, get a whole bulk lot done or something like that if people want to wear them and promote our club. And also these badges that David made for us, and anybody else that needs one, go see David. He's having fun with 3D printing and resin curing to making these cool name badges. What else has been going on? We've got some works going on still in the maker room. We've started ripping down some plaster and stuff. Anybody wants to lend their hand at that on the weekends? Most weekends we'd have you down here to knock some holes in walls or put some timbers up or whatever it needs to happen, or just come and hang out and socialise. The maker stuff is what's attracting members to Moorabbin, new members, so we're kind of focusing on that here at Moorabbin. But don't forget there's all the other SIGs out there as well, and all the other things that MelbPC have their fingers in. Daytime monthly meetings, yep, another great thing. The lunch was absolutely phenomenal for $10. I highly recommend you come down just for the lunch if you don't want to socialise, or listen to short talks or play in our random pairs quiz with a small prize. It's a fun little afternoon event with the lunch to finish it off and hang out as long as you like. So we started a little bit late last month at about 11:30 because people were coming in late, but people didn't leave till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, well after the official meeting time. So that speaks well for what was happening. So come on down and be part of it. The quiz is quite fun. And if anybody's got any solutions to get birds out of basements that doesn't cost an arm and a leg and your firstborn child, I'd love to hear from you, because we are a little bit inundated down here at Moorabbin, and it's getting beyond the pale. So I'm working on another project to create some cartoon noises in the basement just to irritate them enough that they're not getting a good night's sleep and they'll move on, but I don't hold great hopes for it. But we'll keep on trying. I don't have much else to say tonight, I'm afraid. Good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks very much, Mick. Now, Cedric, are you there?
Now.
All right. Well, Cedric Wyndham's a mainstay of the iHelp team, and we'll have something to say, and I guess some Q&A afterwards. but we, as always, will formally close the meeting and stop the recording at 9 o'clock, but the meeting can continue informally if Cedric wishes to and others want to. Thank you, Cedric.
All right, thanks. I think quite a lot of you are aware of the recent 3CX. I'm afraid I'm not really up to date with the last few hours or anything, but to start off at the beginning, 3CX is our main office communication system, which also gives each of the iHelpers and quite a lot of other people a remote extension number, same as, along with a series that are for the office and all the other, the president and the secretary and so forth. The iHelpers have an extension number there, and they can ring up each other without using their own phones from their own homes or wherever the computer happens to be. Unfortunately, we've had that system for quite a few years now. We did have another similar phone system before it, which I think it was largely for cost reasons. We got rid of the earlier one. Unfortunately, they have done some change to licensing conditions, and when you phone up the 92764088 number, which is iHelp, you leave a voicemail, and previously that voicemail was converted to a WAV file and automatically emailed to all iHelpers, and somebody, the first person who saw it, just logged the job, and then we'd get back to you, which meant, of course, that sometimes we'd be able to pick up a job outside normal office hours and outside the hours when an iHelper was rostered. That system's no longer working. If you've gone to the our main web page, you'd have seen a note there. Now you need to ring 92764000, which is the main office number. During office hours, because somebody has to pick it up, take your name, and then write an email to send to the iHelp team. It's a bit clumsy. It's giving the office staff a bit more work when they're still got plenty of work to do without a bit extra. However, at present, until we can work out how to fix this problem, we're not, it's the best we can come up with. If you ring the office and don't get an answer, well, keep trying. I'm afraid is the only advice I can give you. Of course, outside of office hours, there's a fairly good chance you won't get onto anybody. For several weeks now, some volunteers have been working on trying to find a workaround to get the old system where you leave a voicemail on the 4088 extension, and that gets automatically sent to us. They're trying to develop that system within the new set of 3CX design. It seems as though it's not going to be an easy job, so we can't really give you any idea when it's going to, when we're going to have that better system going. Anyway, with that, I'll hand over to anybody else who has any iHelp questions, any computer questions.
Cedric,
Yes.
just briefly on what you said last, I think actually, truly, you're about 16 hours out of date. I think by this morning, the leaving of voicemail messages for iHelp had finally been restored.
Ah, right. Okay. I have seen one or two coming from the office today. So apparently there's few dribbling through from the office, but I hadn't realised that some of them had come from the system. Okay,
No,
well, thanks for that. So, all right. It sounds like you can ring 92764088 and just dictate a voicemail, and we should see it.
Cedric, it's Rob Brown here. We are in a situation where 4088 should be working again. It's only as of this morning that the system got working on a new workaround. So we believe, I think it's fair to say we're in testing mode at the moment. So 4088 should be going through to the iHelp email address.
All right. Thanks for the update. I suspect that there's been a few hours put in by some of our volunteers to get that going. Quite a few hours, probably. So probably the rest of the club will say thanks to those particular volunteers who have managed to come up with that.
I just looked at the website and it still says about problems and calling the office. So when you're comfortable, that page needs to be updated.
Jane, can you refresh your cache, please?
On the website.
Yeah, because that banner has been taken down.
Okay. Nope, still there. Oh, if it's in cache, it's probably still there. Sorry. It's the big orange letters that are in the drop down.
Correct, that should be down now. Let me just check myself. Yeah, that banner's been taken down now.
Okay.
Yes, well, I've just gone to the home page and I'm not seeing it anymore.
Okay.
All right. Anybody got any other problems?
Sounds like you're going to get an early night, Cedric.
Yeah. I think we did have, back last Monday, we finally retrieved, I think it was 20 messages, which had, they all seem to have a date of 14th of March on them, which I suspect is probably when the problem first appeared, but I'm not sure that that date was correct for when they all came in. So Monday and Tuesday, the last couple of days, I think quite a few of the iHelp team have been pretty busy. Some of the, quite a lot of the 20 messages, one way or another, have been solved since, but still there's quite a bit to plough through.
All right. Well, Cedric, thank you again. And thank you to all the iHelp team for all your work. And we'll declare the meeting closed a little bit earlier than usual. So we'll stop the recording and see you all next month.